Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East. Jerusalem, the most hotly contested real estate in the world. Judea and Samaria, condemned by the world as the West Bank. You'll not see it in the media. Journalists try to hide it. Real stories about real people, fathers, mothers, children, families. These are the people of the heartland of Israel. Your journey with him continues with the Joshua and Caleb Report. Stories from the heartland of Israel.
All right, Briggs, I don't know, Josh, but what we're about to talk about right now is absolutely incredible. Refagim is an organization that you represent, but we want to get down to the heart of who Refagim is, but more importantly, the heart of who you are. And just talking to him a few minutes before this interview, to hear your story about where your father came from and where you are today is absolutely incredible. So let's kick back and go straight into this.
For sure. So my dad, and obviously we're all products of our upbringing. And my dad was born in 1939 in Krakow, Poland, in March. And September, the outbreak of the Second World War. And luckily enough, his father, his family had a successful business, and they'd saved up some money. When the war came and the Jews were being rounded up and taken away, they made sure that my father was placed with two Christian ladies who weren't able to have a family of their own. And what was interesting was, obviously there were some ties with these ladies or friends of that, they were friends of the family or they'd worked together. These ladies understood they were risking their lives, and they thought, well, we can't make this decision for ourselves. We need to go to our local priest. And they went to the local priest and said, can we save this Jewish baby? Even though we're putting our lives at risk to do that, is this what we're meant to do? Because really, if this baby will be taken and murdered. It was very well known that that's what the Germans were doing. And so the priest said, yeah, for sure, you have to save this Jewish baby. So they went back to my father's parents and said, yes, we'll look after your son as if he's our own son. And the story is that priest potentially was Pope John Paul II, because at the same time he was there, and it was very known that he was saying this to those people coming up and saying, should we save these Jewish babies? Should we risk our own lives? So my father grew up for the first 6 years of his life in a Christian household in Krakow, saved, and his mother, who they'd also purchased Polish papers for to say that she wasn't Jewish, so she was working, and she'd come back once every few months to see how he's going and meet him as if she was the distant auntie. At the end of the war, she came back to pick him up, having survived. His father, my grandfather, was murdered by the Nazis. My father and his mother married a cousin, a distant cousin as well, remarried, and eventually made their way out to Australia. 1948. And I didn't mention this to you before. On the way out, they were coming from Paris on a joint plane. Joint is the American Joint Distribution Funds, which funding Jewish refugees. They had family in Australia, so they were on a plane going to Australia. The planes in those days couldn't make the whole way directly. They stopped in Basra, which is in Iraq, 1948. Here's a plane load of Jews in Iraq, 1948, in the middle of the independence war of Israel. Iraq is fighting the new state of Israel. A plane load of Jews lands in Iraq, is immediately impounded, and all the Jews are taken off and put in the airport.
And all these Jews have just come out of pretty much the Holocaust.
3 years after the Holocaust, they're going to freedom in Australia, and here they are now captured by the Iraqis because they're in a war against the new Jewish state. So what happens is somehow a message gets out there, other planes coming in and going out, so they get a message to get to the American ambassador in Baghdad that there's a plane load of Jews under the responsibility of the Americans, because it's an American organization, the Joint. So comes from Baghdad the American ambassador with these Marines, and goes to Basra and tells the Iraqis, you immediately get these Jews back on their plane and let them go, or else you're going to have to deal with the American army.
No way.
So then they continue making their way to Australia, set up a new life for themselves there. Now, obviously, these stories were told to me, throughout my growing up, and the stories of the Shoah, of the Holocaust, and how my grandfather was murdered and his family, and how the other family, part of his family survived because they went with the Russians. They went to the Russian side and kept going until they were sent to Siberia and eventually came to Palestine before the establishment of the state and fought for its establishment. And they live today here in Haifa and Jerusalem. And we would come and visit them from Australia. We were brought up very Zionistic. We'd come over here, and I don't know, as soon as I landed in Israel, I felt a connection. My first trip was, I think when I was 12. And I guess it was at that stage I already decided that this was the country I need to be living in, because I was brought up a proud Jew with everything that had happened to my family in Europe. That we needed to be in control of our own destiny. That when we're not in control of our destiny, terrible things have always happened to Jewish people throughout history. Not that terrible things haven't happened to Jewish people when we have been in control of destiny, but it's a lot better when you're in control. At least there's only one person you can blame, and that's yourself in that case. Yeah. So I was brought up a Zionist. I went to a Zionist youth movement. We'd come to Israel, I'd fallen in love with the land, so it was always, once I finished school, I'd come live here for a year and then go back and do university, then come back and live here. And that's pretty much what happened to plan. I met my wife Shuli at school, high school. We were at high school together, both in the same year, and got married after university and came to Israel together, and we've established a family here. And I came in the beginning of the high-tech boom. And I had worked in, computers back in Australia, and that was great because it allowed me to go and work in a booming industry. I thought, fantastic! This is making my integration into Israeli society a lot easier. But I never, people would tell me, once you're here for a while, you'll forget about your Zionist upbringing, you'll forget about the ideology. I never forgot about the ideology. And I was very proud to be supporting and promoting Israeli high-tech products, because that was what was putting Israel on the map in the 90s and 2000s. And so what happened was, this was, we were successful. We were promoting Israel as the startup nation, and I was in sales and marketing, and I had a team all over the world, so I was traveling a lot. But then Gaza, the expulsion from Gaza, 2005, and I never believed it would happen. Right. So we kept going on. We went to protest here, we went to visit here, but really I thought somehow at the end there's going to be a decision not to do it, or the Arabs there's going to be a terrorist attack and something's going to happen which is going to stop it, and it wouldn't go ahead, because I didn't think it was possible that we could expel 7,000 Jews from their homes, that we would give it to the Arabs to set up what we knew would become a terrorist state. And that's exactly what happened. And that caught me by surprise, and I said, I can't keep doing what I'm doing while my country's doing, making silly decisions. The whole idea of coming here was to control our own destiny, as proud Jews in a Jewish state. And so at that stage I decided somehow I'm going to move out of high-tech and move into something where I wouldn't let these things happen.
So that high-tech movement was booming huge at that point too, right?
That's right. So, I had to find the right exit point. I didn't have an exit or anything like that, but I had saved up enough money that by the crash into, where there was the uncertainty in 2008, I said, well, this is my time to take a year off. Yeah. So I went and I was an emissary in Australia, with the family, talking about Zionism and teaching about Israel. But my 1 year off I'm still on that 1 year off. We're 5-6 years later, and I'm very happy. I've got a very understanding wife who understands why I need to be doing what I'm doing.
Who's a hardcore Zionist as well, I'm guessing.
Yes, she is. That's right. So that's why I'm here at Refagim, because at the end of the day, what I found, first of all, from the Gaza experience, secondly, from being in Australia, I'm telling you, there are Jewish people overseas who, to save a whale is as important as saving the Jewish people. And it just means we've distanced ourselves from our essence. Our essence is the Jewish people and the love for Eretz Israel. And, I don't have to mention the verses in the Bible that come out and say that. That's clear to anyone who knows anything, starting from Genesis throughout. So that it's been lost on the Jewish people, really, so how can we connect people back? And I thought, look, I didn't grow up religious, but as soon as I landed in Israel, this connection happened. It was like my foot touching the ground. Immediately there's just a symbiotic relationship between the Jewish people and the land of Israel. And I thought, if I can encourage people to come here, encourage people to walk the land, see the land, and not Tel Aviv, and not those places they might normally go, but Judea and Samaria, the heartland, where it all happened, and introduce them to the history, to our history, to the Bible, but through walking through the land, seeing what's going on, and understanding why this area is so important, well, that will connect them forever.
Absolutely.
And Refagim is all about the land. We have researchers all over the land, so I'm getting pearls of information, knowledge. We've got informers all over the country, and I can share that with people that know about Refagim, and they hear about things going on, and it connects them.
Wow.
There's nothing like a struggle to connect people.
Yeah, I think this is awesome. Just the whole story, man. You need to write a book or something. I don't know. The whole story of leading up to Refagim, where you're at right now, it's so phenomenal. And even pieces I didn't even know and also right now. So this is amazing. But just that whole journey and what's led you to standing up for the land in a real way, like you said, the sacrifice of stepping out of a booming, high tech in Israel. Everybody knows that this is like a huge deal. And so moving out of that and taking that sacrifice to say, you know what, the land is important. And what are we talking about? We're talking about a Joshua and Caleb report. I think this is phenomenal. You're one of those guys. You're one of those guys on the front lines of Israel that's saying the land is important, and that's what Joshua and Caleb said. The land is important, and we're going in to possess the land. That's what they were doing. So I think you're one of these guys, and you're taking the front lines on that. So I want to know more about what is Refagim doing. What's your position in Refagim, and what is this huge, this beautiful thing that's happening where people are standing up to say the land's important?
Yeah. So as you said, the Joshua and Caleb and possessing the land. Well. We got to a stage, and we're still at that stage, where we're dispossessing ourselves of the land. There is a silent conquest going on, and I use the conquest, which is an active term. It's not just there's a silent conquest going on where the land is being taken out from underneath our feet. And it doesn't matter how many beautiful synagogues, universities, hospitals, study halls we build, schools, yeshivas. At the end of the day, without the land underneath it, we've got nothing. There's nothing left. And that's literally what's happening. But because it's not happening in the clear sight of those people living in Tel Aviv, those people living in Jerusalem, then people don't know about it. And Refagim's job is to bring that awareness to the people of Israel. In Israel and outside of Israel, because what happens outside of Israel is everyone hears the CNNs, the NBCs, the ABCs, BBC, saying how terrible Israel is and how Israel is dispossessing the Palestinian people of their land. And it is absolutely the opposite of everything that's going on. And only Refagim, through its researchers, through its informers, knows what's going on, and we document that. And we don't just document it to tell people about it, we document it because we go to court about it, because there are laws on the books, but they're not being applied. Why aren't they being applied? And all we talk about is the equal application of law. We want the law applied equally to both Arab and Jews. A Jew who builds a house allegio, adds a patio or an extra room onto their house without the necessary approvals, gets it taken down immediately, and a fine.
Yeah.
Arabs all over the country have been doing this for the last 67 years, and nothing's been happening to them. Why? Because it's so much easier to apply the law to the Jews than to the Arabs. Because when you start applying it to the Arabs, well, then people are going to start telling you that you're being racist, that you're being too strict on them, that that's not their culture, that's not their lifestyle, that they've gone through some hard times. You Jews have come here and kicked them out of their homes. Give them a break. And that's exactly what has been happening here. And it's happening all over the country. Within the Negev, it's with the Bedouin, where they've spread out now over a 200,000 acre area where they've literally taken it over, and it's only a short amount of time where they'll be requesting autonomy in that area. In the north, where the villages and towns are just expanding into their agricultural land, into the nature reserves, and they take and build, and there's no one who's prepared to stop them. Wow. In Judea and Samaria, illegal building going up one after the other, and all the rest of the world is worried about is Jews returning to their homeland. And that influences, that pressure from outside about the problem of Jews returning to their homeland, Judaizing Jerusalem. Can you imagine? Well, I mean, what kind of, that's like saying, you know, making more Christian the Vatican. I mean, can you say that? So, you know, so that's the pressure Israel's under. So it ignores what's going on under the radar with this stealing, the taking of the land of Israel away from us, literally as we're standing there. And that's what Refagim does. Refagim makes people aware. We also go to court. We also work in the Knesset. We make sure there are laws passed. We make sure the laws are implemented. When the law's not implemented, we want the Knesset to be discussing it. We're working in the committees. And it's tireless work. And it's frustrating work because we're a small, tiny organization of 10 people. And we've got to be everywhere all at once because it's happening everywhere. And so it's tough.
I've seen the front lines of exactly what you're saying all over the place, but it's like you said, it's like a silent deal that's just kind of growing out, and nobody's paying attention to it because the world is so focused on the building of the Jewish communities that are happening, which is actually legal. Like there's a huge, like you said, the law applies to the law-abiding citizens. So I just think it's really a crazy thing that's happening. To where it's just a shift. It's a major shift of really right and wrong.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And I just think it's phenomenal what you're doing in pushing the righteousness really. That should be justice.
Every single person working in Refagim, I mean, as frustrating as it is, and as when you see what's actually going on, there's a recoil effect because wow, you're blown away because this is scary stuff. This is really happening and people don't know about it. So what's more scary, that it's happening or that people don't know about it? So that's what we've got to deal with. And every single one of the guys working in Refagim has given up because they're top. They're the top of their field, where they're top lawyers, top administration, top researchers, and they've given up what they could have been doing to do this because there's nothing more important than the land of Israel and saving that for the Jewish people.
And I totally believe that. I mean,
it's the future.
It's the future of
You're
Israel.
saying, hey, what are we as a country if we don't have any land to live on?
Nothing. That's right.
Absolutely.
This is phenomenal. I want to know more of what your exact position is inside Refagim. What's your job?
Okay. So the guys at Refagim realized that as successful as they were being here in Israel, in getting the word out there and also getting the Knesset involved, the parliament involved, and also getting the court, starting to win in the courts, which was tough in and itself because those courts have already taken on that anti-Zionist, that it's a state for all of its people, that we can't hold up these Zionist principles of building a Jewish state here. And to fight against that and start winning that is tough. But they realized as much as they were winning here, a bit of pressure from the Secretary of State, a bit of pushback from the European Union, and the Prime Minister wouldn't go ahead and implement what had been legally advised or ruled on, or what a law that had gone through the Knesset. There's a way of putting things on the back burner. So they realized we needed to take the message and take it overseas. There wasn't just the idea of the message. I mean, we're an organization that's based on donations and we have very, very limited resources, but we're trying to deal with a problem that is as big a problem as exists. So small resources, massive problem. There's obviously an unequal balance here, and we're going to, it's going to fall. It's not going to succeed. So my role is to take the message outside, take the information outside, and hopefully find those people that understand what's going on and have them support us. Because a lot of good people want to be involved in saving the land of Israel. Now, who wouldn't be? Now, it used to be that people used to put money in the blue box to buy a piece of land, or buy a tree. But when I tell them that there are thousands of acres every year being usurped from the nation, all over the place, please support us. Well, they want to come on board.
Wow. What have you seen a lot of, obviously it's at a beginning stage here, even in Refagim, of really making that impact. You guys have been extremely successful in a lot of areas that I know of. And I think that this is like one of the top organizations in Israel, truly. From being around here and seeing things of what you guys are able to do with what you have. But on those trips, when you're going out all over the world, like you're the advocate, you're going out and saying, guys, this is important. We need to get a hold of. Are you feeling like that the nations are turning to a point where they're saying, not on a large scale, we know. I mean, there's a lot of people anti-Israel. But do you feel like there are people out there in the nations that are grabbing hold and saying, we want to support this vision?
There are people, and there are some people who get it and get it immediately. Others, you need to bring up the diagrams and the imagery, and you need to pull up Google Earth, and you need to just trying to open people's eyes. And I also write articles. I've got to get really angry actually to write. So I was never a good writer, but someone has to make me really angry to actually go down there and write a Jerusalem Post article. And I do that as well, because the idea is to get the word out there. When people start understanding what's going on, the thing is, it's diametrically opposed to everything they're hearing in the Western media. Diametrically opposed. When they hear about, all they hear about is Jews stealing Palestinian land. All they hear about is Jews illegally building. All they hear about is Jews and Arabs not mixing on the roads and there being road-specific Jews. This is all the opposite. The exact opposite of actually what goes on here. And I say, come to Israel, I'll take you and show you what's going on, no problem. But if you can't come, well, I'm going to have to show you on Google Earth, I'm going to have to show you on the videos we produce, I'm going to have to show you on the mapping system we have, just to convince you. So I'm also undoing a lot of that terrible propaganda that's been put in their heads, the heads of Jewish people. They're trying to turn the Jewish people off the state of Israel. They're trying to disconnect the Jewish people from the Jewish people living in Eretz Israel.
Wow, that's incredible. Like, I would highly recommend, I've seen your 45-minute presentation, and I'm literally sitting there on the edge of my seat the entire time, listening to what you had to say. Like, it's just like, I'm going, I had no clue the reality of what's really taking place here, but I want to hear from you, okay? This is a 30-second question. I want you to answer it in 30 seconds if you can. Make it concise as possible, okay? What are your dreams? What do you see as the future of the land of Israel, and what you want to see for your grandchildren or great-grandchildren?
So I know, I've got 5 boys. And although every day, not every day, but they always say, why don't you go back to high-tech, Daddy? What the hell are you doing? I said, I worked for 15 years and, I worked hard doing what I was doing. And these next 15 years I have dedicated to the land of Israel, because it's important. We can only be examples to our kids and our grandkids. And I want them to know that I fought tooth and nail to save the land of Israel with the best people available, and that are the people of Refagim. And the idea being, I know that we're in the right direction. When I speak to people people here in Israel, it's in their soul, that love of the land of Israel, the love of the Jewish people, and rebuilding this special country. It's happening. The redemption is happening. And we're going to hit some hurdles along the way, and I want to be there to try and remove those hurdles, try and get over those hurdles, so that we can, be as successful as we will be, and I know we'll be successful in the future.